it's Alan Burnett, and I want to welcome you back to yourweddinghub.com for the story of the week. And this is a lot of people's favorite day of the week, and they check in just to find out what funny stories Alan got to tell this week. But before I get into my story, I just want to draw your attention to what's behind me here. We're standing on the roof of one of my chapels right now in Vancouver, and you'll have heard me say before, if you tune into yourweddinghub.com regularly, that we've got the most beautiful city in the world. Funny story, this isn't my story of the day, but a couple of years ago, we had a couple that traveled here with all of their wedding guests from Venice, I think it was. That year, Venice was considered the second most beautiful city in the world. Vancouver was #1. They said, we're not going to get married in the second best beautiful city in the world. So they all came to Vancouver. So, you know, just a note to self, you might want to check it out. The story I want to tell you about today involves a phone. In fact, it involves the phone going off in the middle of the ceremony. In fact, it involves my phone going off in the middle of the ceremony. I was doing this wedding for this couple, and it's a rehearsal the night before. They were kind of a unique couple. It's just a little bit more rough and tough and fun, lots of sense of humor. And at the rehearsal the night before, when we were all done, and I could tell from the wedding party, there were some guys that I would not want to cross in this wedding party, you know, had rings all the way across every finger. And at the rehearsal the night before, when we were all done rehearsing, the groom said to everybody, "Okay, you guys out, I want to talk to the Rev." And I thought, shoot, did I do something wrong? I didn't know if I was going to get chewed out or what was about to happen. But anyway, he sat down at the signing table up front, and the bride and groom and I were standing there, and he said, "Alan," he said, "you got a wicked sense of humor." I wasn't sure how to take that, but anyway, he said, "You've got a wicked sense of humor." And he said, I think you'd be up for this. He said, "I want you to do something for me tomorrow. At the ceremony," he said, "I want you to leave your phone on. And I'm going to have one of my buddies ring you just to kind of break the tension. You know, I don't want to turn it into a circus, but I just want to kind of break the tension, you know, so that we can sort of relax and have fun." Now, I've been requested to do a lot of different things. That one, I got to tell you, was really kind of pushing the envelope for me. But I thought about it really quickly, and I said, yeah, I'd be up for that, as long as we do it really right at the beginning. So the next day, people started showing up for this wedding. A lot of them were on bikes and wearing their leathers, and I noticed that they had a patch on their back. It wasn't Hell's Angels, but it was, most of them belonged to a biker gang called Sober Riders, and they were all recovery people, and I thought, cool, I love them, you know, what a neat group of people. But again, you know, sort of rough and tough looking. So at the beginning of the wedding, before we actually started, I thought, okay, I gotta, you know, kind of set this up. So I got together with this buddy that was going to phone me, and I said, okay, 90 seconds in at the very most, when I say this line, I said, I want you to hit this button to, you know, to dial my phone. And but before we began the ceremony, I got up front and I put on my toughest looking face, and I said, okay, you guys, get your phones out. I said, I don't want any phones going off in the middle of the ceremony. This is a sacred event. And so I set it up. I mean, I had these guys, I had these big tough guys just kind of, you know, I mean, they just were melting in my, you know, being intimidated by me. So I said, turn that silencer off now. I said, if your phone goes off, I'm going to stop and look at you, and you're going to be embarrassed. So shut your phones off. So we began the procession, got to the front, and I had my ringer on high volume, of course. And 60, 90 seconds into the ceremony, all of a sudden this phone went off. And of course, no one could really tell whose phone it was, and so these bikers thought, uh-oh, someone is in trouble. And at that point, I quickly started grabbing for my phone, and all of them realized, oh, it's the preacher whose phone went off. So I pulled it out. Now, I didn't tell the groom I was going to do this, but I said, you guys, I got to take this call. Are you okay with that? And of course, everybody in the place just about fell off their pews laughing. It's a church building, pews, you know. But anyway, they just about fell off their seats laughing, and they thought, well, what a geek, where did you find this guy from? And so I kind of turned sideways, but I was talking loud so everybody could hear me. And I said, hello? Yeah, I'm in the middle of a wedding. And of course, at that point, I don't know why that was so funny, but everybody was just, what a goof this guy is. And I said, yeah. I said, okay, can I give you a call back? And then I said, yeah, Gary's here, and that was the groom's name. I said, you want me to tell him what? Lord, you want me to tell him you haven't heard from him in a while and you're looking forward to, and so then of course everybody knew it was a big spoof. And of course the joke was on the groom who put me up to this in the first place, but it was hilarious. And I have to tell you that from there we went to there wasn't a dry eye in this place. It was the neatest wedding. I mean, where everyone was laughing to some of the most touching moments that I've ever seen in a wedding. And it was a cool wedding that I will never forget. Bumped into that couple at a resort in Mexico a few years later. They're still going on, happily married, but it's because we started out with a happy day. So thanks for checking out yourweddinghub.com. Come back next week for another story of the week. But in the meantime, coming up in the next week, we're going to have going to be interviewing a travel agent. We're going to be talking about destination weddings, wedding planning. We've got a rental guide, tent rentals, you name it. We've got some information coming up that's going to help you plan a wedding day that's over the top. See you soon.